Oh, my whole thing is like, and I do this even when I'm teaching online, and then I bring students back into the class after they're in like breakout groups on Zoom, is I sing the song to Welcome Back, Cotter.
Oh,
Welcome
awesome.
back, welcome back, welcome back.
That
And
is very fitting.
unfortunately, none of my students, zero, get the reference. Like maybe one a semester gets it. So it's mostly for me and not at all for them.
Well, it's I love that show. I guess Nick at Night has changed a lot since our youth.
Oh my God, what would be on it now? Is it like Saved by the Bell? It was Fresh Prince for a long time, so it's
It
kind of
was
like,
fresh, yeah. I mean, '90s, I think, early 2000 shows.
oh my God, do you remember? Like I used to remember the lineup, and it was like the Munsters and I Love Lucy and Bewitched and Dick Van Dyke, and at some point I think there was like Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh yeah.
It was
Wow.
like the heyday of like sitcom, at home, comedy sort of stuff.
And it was that, when you say that, there was also like a spread of 25 years worth of television. It
Yeah.
wasn't just television from 25 years ago exactly. Is kind of what it seems that the Nick at Night pattern is for us who've grown a little old or something like that. My daughter played a claw game recently and got an Eddie Munster kind of plush was the prize that she got, and she calls it Teddy Monster.
That's so cute and hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we should bring that back. I was in Vegas recently and there was like a Frankenstein game, and every time I passed it, I thought it was the dad from the Munsters. Herman Munster, wasn't that his name?
Yes. Who wrote the actor's name escapes me right now, but he was the author of the book The King Who Reigned for 40 Years, which was a wonderful children's book
Was he?
about, yeah.
Well, welcome back to
Um,
Liberal Arts MBA, everybody. The show where you will learn about learning while still learning.
Absolutely. Which I absolutely believe is a critical part of the age of automation and AI. If
Ooh,
the machines can just kind of poop out anything at any moment, we can just be learning, and that's the good stuff.
yeah. I mean, it is implied, right? Like we like tell people that AI is basically like computers learning our language and how to predict our language. It's like a really basic form of it, or way of understanding it. But so like there's something meta about that, right? We're like, if the machines are learning from our learning, therefore we should be learning in order to continue to teach the machines how to learn our learning. Did I just
I
overcomplicate that?
no, well, there's just so many paths to go down there. I mean, at one point, somebody told me they were building an AI bot that was just going through physics papers, actual written physics papers. This person's not a physicist, nor am I, but that person who I'm talking about is a computer science scientist and understands AI much more than I do. But
Sure.
they were going to put through paper after paper after paper, a lot of very new things. And their thesis was that they could have this language technology kind of reduce or what's the word I want to go with here? Like by returning to it and going through it in a way that it's looking at the language and looking at what's there, would find novel discoveries that were missed by the people there. And so I was grilling him in the fact that I've never read a physics paper from a physics journal, but I would assume that you have a written argument and you have a bunch of data. You have your experiment data that's written and observed and done in the way that it's done, but it's separate from the argument piece, right? I guess that's all academic stuff, but
Yeah,
specifically that
probably it
that
works.
you would have both of those pieces, and I don't get how you could have novel discoveries if the thing couldn't be in the lab with the actual data. Sure, you're like looking at the data, maybe there's that. I argued that that piece of analyzing the data by AI that might have been taken from the lab that's present in these reports is only more sophisticated than maybe the computer the previous researcher was using. So how is that a departure, right? But then I just don't think it can do that other thing. However, maybe it can, and still, if it does, it's at the volition of that person I met who created this program, who's
Right.
just like another researcher. And so, yeah, I guess it's another tool, but the only actual creative work that's being done in that entire environment of research is humans saying they want something started.
Right. Well, there's like two interesting things about this that are like kind of true in the direction of the humans that did the original research and now the humans that are creating these large language models to essentially read through all these data and all these papers. The first is that every single researcher is blinded by their own bias on what they see as possible problems and possible solutions. Like, even at our best, when we believe ourselves to be super open-minded and not projecting our own biases onto the data, like if you assume that there is a positivist truth that can absolutely be known, I'm not one of those people, but a lot of researchers are, that even in those moments, you are bounded by everything you've learned before, by all the information that already exists and what has been posed as viable problems, equally viable solutions to you. This is like a classic problem in public policy, but it's true of research, right? And so, there is the potential for then the machine to come along with its ability to read. It's not necessarily processing, like it doesn't know what it's looking at, but it's reading in a sense, to say like, oh, if we look at this data and these findings through this other lens, based on a lens that like someone that you never even knew came up with, and you never found that paper, then maybe we have this new finding. That's possible. And that's an interesting idea, right? Like, how can we break down our own biases and bounded rationalities to see something that we otherwise just could never have seen because of who we are and our experiences in the world and what we believe already. The other side of it, though, is that, as you noted, these machines that are being trained to do these things are being trained by other humans who are going to have their own biases and boundary rationalities. And so, there's an interesting way here to like expand the universe of things, and also like we're always going to be limited by just like what we can see from our own positionality of individuals. It's why diversity is important. But so that's an interesting takeaway from it. The other interesting takeaway is that like maybe we just like data has its own problems and idiosyncrasies, and like we could actually like get better by having machines take another look at it. I think it's hard, but it's not undoable, and it's just so true that like you can't know the whole realm of everything that exists out there. So if there's a way a machine can help, yeah.
I like actually a lot of how you're positioning it there. Is in that the big flaw of being human is that we're so emotional, and I mean, as a liberal arts person, as much as I can look at a spreadsheet and see it for what it is, I definitely have a story for those numbers that's going to be a little bit massively informed by everything else that's going on in my brain.
Yeah.
And that's data, and that's the space between data becoming information and data becoming knowledge, and that's where there's both choice, because any data about the marketplace, there's hundreds of firms that like use computers and quantitative people to make billions of dollars, and they all have different arguments that they build their computer systems or their equations and data analysis on, and none of them are wrong, clearly, because they're all being successful in what they're doing or learning from their failures. But that with people at a smaller scale, we throw in our irrationality to all this data we're getting from the world. So I'm totally with you that it's a really good tool for that. We that is actually one of the objective weaknesses, is even like very few people have there's a lot of mathematical intelligences that people can develop, and numeracy is one of them, and those all can be developed. But real huge amounts of data intelligences are just, they're rare and are not cultivated most people, and they're not going to be ever. And there's going to be more people, so I'm totally down with that part because I make a lot of emotional decisions.
We all do. We gave a Nobel Prize a few years ago for behavioral economics, which was that, we make decisions based on how we feel. It's my general understanding of it. Hey, you said liberal arts. Should we reintroduce ourselves and reintroduce the show? No,
We should.
Talking for 11 minutes.
Yeah, now that we got everybody schmoozing.
Hey, folks
If you're
out there in the world, welcome back to Liberal Arts MBA.
This is a show Sara and I have been doing. Dr. Sara Sands. I have no title. I'm Mr. Jacob Sager. We've been doing this show. It started with interviews between the two of us about our journeys from our education to career to leadership. And we're coming into this space thinking about career to leadership to being a creator. And in the time of our first season, we did, I think, a dozen episodes. We interviewed 10 other people besides ourselves, which was, I learned a lot from that. That was a great season. We talked to people all over the world. That was great. I mean, most people were in North America, but we did talk to people outside.
2 in Europe, 1 in the UK,
And,
1 in Switzerland. But yeah. So we started. When we started this in 2021, we realized, speaking today, we were responding to, if I'm recalling correctly, there was a debate that remains heated and ongoing in our current cultural and political and popular zeitgeist, which is what is the value of a liberal arts education? So we named the show Liberal Arts MBA, sort of tongue-in-cheek, because
there was also that like super saturation in the American job. There's too many MBAs right now. There were like too many people who are given MBAs are being sought out as this like general role for fixing problems anywhere in a corporate or organizational ladder, when it's like, why is that so?
Right. And at that time and now, we've not moved away from this debate, I would say. I think we're still fully entrenched in it as part of a larger conversation that is ongoing about what is the value of an undergraduate education in the liberal arts, specifically in this country and others, but particularly in this country, because the cost of higher education is incredibly high for any number of reasons. We're consistently defunding it. We are passing the cost on to students, and so we have had this sort of ongoing mantra that has emerged from certain sectors of that the best thing you can do is get a degree that's practical, that'll make you money, that matters in a business sense and guarantees you a job. And that has, as Jacob said, led to like the celebration of the MBA as sort of like the degree, the terminal degree to have. And we thought in 2021, when we launched the show, that we should challenge that notion. Both of us have liberal arts degrees. I from Tulane and Jacob from University of Texas, Austin. Excellent institutions. Roll wave, hook 'em horns. I now sit in the University of Houston, go Cougs. But we are continuing to question whether or not that's true. And what we found is when we started interviewing people who all had liberal arts degrees, we moved into this space that we started to talk about their journeys and what they had done with a liberal arts degree. And what we found was that they had done tons of things. They had lived around the world. They had gotten degrees from institutions around the world. They gotten degrees that matched their liberal arts degree specialty areas, and they had gotten degrees that were far away from that area. They were working in sectors that they could have, were immediately related to their degrees, and they were working in sectors that had nothing to do with their degrees.
Right. They
Right.
went into teaching, they left teaching.
Right. They were moving in and out of careers and in and out of jobs and in and out of sectors, and had, these fascinating college to career journeys, but ultimately all oriented around uh, what they had learned from their liberal arts degree that positioned them in a way to think about what could a meaningful life be to them. And that's the story that we really started telling with liberal arts MBA, I think. What do you think, Jacob?
Absolutely. I think that's exactly the story we were telling, was that the structure of the past was that a certain set of specialisms were going to be the ticket, and that was never the truth. But that the real truth is, we live in a huge world with a lot of possibility, and the only way to navigate it, whether you're working or exploring or learning or whatever, is to have the sensitivities and the intelligences to how humans have created that world and how humans are navigating that world. I mean, one of the interesting things for me, especially just the kind of vicariousness of other people, was people traveling to other countries, and just the kind of life and experiences that they were having there.
Yeah, that
But
was something, we can reflect for a moment on what we learned from season one. We interviewed teachers and PhD candidates and MBA graduates. We interviewed people working in different parts of the philanthropic foundation world. We interviewed people who were working in banking and management consulting and leadership development. We interviewed
military intelligence.
military intelligence and technology, like literal rocket science. A la Sam Friedman. Who else did we? I mean, we interviewed so many incredible people with fascinating. We interviewed Charlinda, who was building her own design business. We interviewed fascinating people. So what did we learn? What were some of our key takeaways from season one that are shaping how we're going into season two now? Finally, season two.
There's one thing that Charlinda kind of said that's always resonated in my mind, where she was just talking about when she was working in branding for a company, and there was, as the visual manager of that brand, there was an integrity that she stood for because she was producing it, whereas anyone else didn't see that integrity and always saw it as being fluid, despite the fact that that was the brand that they agreed on. And so she just talked about really needing to know in that organization, specifically anecdotally, but just like which hills to die on about the brand. But I think that's an important one here. I think season two is about knowing or figuring out the brand a bit more. People don't talk a lot about the first season of Seinfeld, but they were figuring it out too. There's a lot of classics there. So I think that's a lesson to take into it, literally into the show, but also I think about that in life with everything. Just what there's an integrity to because what is a brand? I'm not actually asking that question specifically, but just that like anything could be a brand. So just any endeavor in your life. Is like, what's the integrity there, and where is the line that you need to uphold because people have entrusted you to say what it is,
Yeah.
so that you can communicate it.
Yeah, we did an event yesterday. Some of our listeners might know, I'm the associate director of our Elizabeth D. Rockwell Center on Ethics and Leadership in the Hobby School of Public Affairs at the University of Houston. Again, go Cougs. And we had an event yesterday with Luis Miranda, father of Lin-Manuel Miranda, a la Hamilton fame.
Oh.
But Luis is a political strategist, and he was talking about the importance of your moral compass. That like everything you do stems from your moral compass and your willingness to maintain your own integrity even in the face of pressure to cave. And I think there's like, what we can learn from Sherlinda is a bit of like the, what hills do you die on? What battles do you fight? But I think like coming back to your core of like, can you live with the decision? Is it in line with your moral compass and your integrity? And can you explain it to your children at the end of the day as to why you did something? It really sits with me. It makes a lot of sense. Something that I was telling my students the other day that I come back to all the time. You know, we talked to Justin Douglas, who's my mentor from IBM, and Justin and I have had conversations for years about that it's not just luck. It's about creating your opportunities in the moment when things are presented to you. And I think that like that's so true, and largely what is going to shape how we rethink the way we deliver this show and we deliver our programming in season 2, which will still really focus on telling people's journeys. But I think for us, and we're going to talk about your story in a moment, Jacob, like we have both expanded our lives in 3 years in really big ways. It's why it took us so long to get to season 2. But in order to create space for our own desire to create together, we've had to make some adjustments. We've had to rethink the way our opportunities look and how to seize them and to create those opportunities in the moment. And so I think that's going to like really shape what we're doing in season 2.
Yeah, I agree. What Justin said actually has resonated with me a lot, and I bring that in the last 2 years of my life a lot more than I realized now that you've re-articulated it. Another thing that stood out for me was when Earl was talking about the institutions, where he had moved to, where the university was, like locally, community things, and he just like loved it. And there was nobody his age who was part of it, so he ended up being on the board of something or just on the committee, and it really mattered because he had the right energy at that age to bring in what the present moment needed. But also, it really mattered because he loved it and he was showing up for it and it was becoming something better. I don't remember the exact, he brought it up for many things, but there was like something very community based and local there to the university and such. But it was awesome. And I think about that a lot too.
Yeah, I think about Errol's journey all the time, and also Josh Elder's journey, which in some ways is same, but different. They're both an educator, and they're both brilliant. Josh is actually now doing a doctorate of education at NYU, so he has moved on to continue his own education while still. He's also been promoted as vice president of grant making at the Siegel Family Endowment, but. You know, both of them really talked about the importance of showing up as their full selves in places and being that voice to bring in another perspective and doing it enthusiastically and open-heartedly and just digging deeper, taking advantage of where they were and the timing of events where they were and going hard and digging deeper and to the work that they were doing to serve others, really. And I think that that's continuing to shape what both you and I do in the world together and separately.
Yeah.
So, folks, we're going to repeat a little bit of what we did in season 1, where in our first 2 episodes, I'm going to interview Jacob today. Jacob's going to interview me next time. We are no longer doing this show every week like we did in 2021. That was amazing and something that we only had the opportunity to do at that moment in our lives. Jacob has since become...
And we are grateful for that time.
Yeah. A father of 5 and is spawning multiple businesses as well. And so we're going to talk about that today. I'm now a professor, instructional associate professor of public administration and the associate director of our Center on Ethics and Leadership. I got married since 2021. I finished a PhD. I got married.
At one hell of a party.
One hell of a party. It was so much. It's almost been a year. Can you believe that? It's almost been a year. Life is sweet. So we are not going to do this every week. Instead, we are going to come to you one Friday a month for 1 hour. We're going to start with ourselves, unpacking our journeys since you last saw us. And then we are going to cultivate another amazing set of guest speakers to bring to you once a month. We encourage you in the meantime to refresh, to go back to season 1 on our YouTube, Liberal Arts MBA, or on our Facebook page, also Liberal Arts MBA, or on our LinkedIn page, Liberal Arts MBA, or to access those links via our Instagram of, say it with me,
Liberal Arts MBA. And don't visit just yet, but we also have liberalarts.mba. So soon you'll be able to go to that link and it'll get you to the other links.
Right. So in the meantime, Jacob, shall we return to your journey from where we
shall
last time? Let's start with the personal. What have you been up to since 2021?
Oh man, since 2021. Well, in 2021, I will start, even though our show ran through that whole year, at the beginning of 2021, my 4th child, my daughter Zari, was born. She was actually born just after midnight on January 7th. She wanted nothing to do spiritually with any of the energy of the day before, to be her own independent woman. And now she's 3 and has a full personality and is a very bright young woman, and is a big sister. I have another child. Our 5th was born this last October. She was born on October 14th, which was a Saturday. And it was actually an annular eclipse. So it wasn't a full eclipse, but it happened to be one that and it has to do with the relative geometry of how close the moon is. It goes in front of the sun, but it's not at just the right amount to get it 100 for anywhere where it's passing the shadow. So she was born, and we were joking about this because the due date was that date. So we knew it was the date of this eclipse. Both of these things were articulated. Not every baby comes on their due dates. None of our other 4 children came exactly on their due date. And as the week was coming, I was like just feeling, but joking to my wife, but also feeling like she's gonna come when the eclipse is here. And I mean, birth was the entire, the eclipse experience is kind of a longer experience than the totality. She fully emerged right after totality finished. It's kind of crazy. This is just like a pretty thing.
How amazing.
So that's my 5th child. In between those 2 times, in 2001 when we launched Liberal Arts MBA, at that same time I launched, during that summer of 2021, I launched the Space Midrash Project podcast, which, I mean, it's a project podcast, same thing right now. The only real thing is that central piece of media, which is a podcast, on-demand audio. And what that is about is, it's about space philosophy from a Jewish perspective. My thought is that, from a lot of other things I was reading, but the summer of 2021 when we launched the show, Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin started sending up private passengers into space, which was just a big change. And it hit me as this like McLuhan quote hit me: the future of the future is today. If you see the pattern, you'll see the future. And it's like, oh wait, yeah, I mean, we are in the future of space travel. Like, I need as much as it's a fancy ride for a person who can pay for the ticket, we're looking at something real. And there was the Inspiration 4 mission at the end of that year, which was really big. And so all that changed a lot for me and really turned me on. And so I started by I did about 24 monologue episodes, usually short. Some definitely went over 10 minutes. Most were around 4 or 5 minutes. They were on very specific thoughts around space philosophy, seeing the Earth from space, the narrative collapse that comes with that perspective. So a few episodes were about that, which is the overview effect, as coined by Frank White. Other things are a little more specifically Jewish, talking about life and death in space and why the practice of sitting Shiva when you're like on a mission and nobody can really stop would be important still. Some of the questions that come with the fact that most religious rituals are very time focused. and time.
Judaism is a religion of time. Consider
Yeah,
we are not a punctual people,
we're
but
not
we
a punctual
really
people.
ritualize time. It's like
And
we aspire to be timely people.
we aspire to it. That's what the world wants. That's what 4,000 years of struggle and trying to make it through the wilderness have not exactly procured.
Took us
Uh,
40 years to get there, but
yeah. Um, and so then in a few other pieces, kind of more philosophically around, I would say, futurism. That might not have been so space focused, but then it turned into doing interviews with people. I mean, and I still have actually a backlog of monologues I want to do, but the conversations what that opened me up to, I kind of had this two-pronged mission, which was one is to spread awareness of the overview effect. It's something that we can easily take for granted and already do. That's another future. The future is today. At some point, the fact that we can see Earth from space, there'll be a whole generation that will live and work in space, and kind of, that's just the view from out the window. Did you even look up today at the Earth? No, I was like busy, doing the bolts or teaching the computer Shakespeare. I'm not sure what's going to be happening then. I don't think I'll be alive, but it was just that's the first piece, is to spread that philosophy specifically amongst Jewish communities, but to also probe and touch on the fact that where humanity will be in a space age, which we're already in, is always just an extension of where we're coming from. So we need to tell a story of the people we want to become, and for me personally, in the way that I've grown up and raised, I've always come to see like my Judaism as being a framework of an ethical, artful futurism. That's what it's about. It's about creating a future, and that future is ethical, and that future is artful, and that therefore it's worth living and pursuing, and challenging other things that come up against those ideals or those goals. And so it's been pretty interesting. I've interviewed a lot of fascinating people: astronaut, a philosopher, a sci-fi writer and McLuhanist, which is the best, a professor on the anthropology of religion, a leader at the intersection of space industry and entertainment, and very much that, like, there's an interesting place in which a lot of people who've done very well for themselves through things like the Star Trek universe, actors, writers, all these different people, they all have their charities that they want to do into the world, right? They as private individuals, whether it's hyper local to their community or something that's a little more global, but there's a lot of things that they care about. And there's this place where people in the industry are just, in the various space industries, love, these are their idols. They look up to these people. So there's somebody I brought on that's finding this interesting intersection where industry and entertainment and nonprofit are going to be able to support each other. And whatever future's coming out of that, which will include more Star Trek entertainment or more, charitable giving in the world and more space industry. It's three different things that are going in different directions, but somehow where they truly overlap is where, like, humans kind of come together in the real world, and that's awesome. And so it's been uncovering a lot of that, and meeting people in that place. And so I'm continuing. I'm doing more interviews. People in industry is kind of the current kick right now with the Space Midrash show. So that's been a big thing that's grown in the last 2 years. I mean, people are asking me now to come on my show, which is like,
dope. Congratulations.
Yeah, that didn't happen last year.
Getting steam, getting traction, moving up in that I app. What is it? I don't remember. The Apple, whatever the Apple podcast.
Yeah, the iTunes store. You know what? There's not a lot of competition, but I've been pretty high on some daily ranks for Judaism podcasts or technology. But I think they're
proud of you, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. Depends.
You have not just been doing Space Midrush, though. You have been expanding your other spoken word, if you will, the application of the term, and also expanding your business. Talk to us more about what's been going on in the business realm and how you've been doing there and how you got there.
Yeah, in the business realm. Um, what I've been doing is really my bread and butter has been being a private consultant when it comes to a kind of digital problem solving. It's always hard to describe what I do because I will, in a way, come on as an employee to somebody for most of the year and solve a bunch of problems that weren't the original problems they brought me in to solve. Um, and what that always looks like at some level is we're automating software to do work, which
Right.
is what people usually think they're already doing with software, but really, actually, a lot of times, what you're really doing is just giving yourself a good tool to be working with.
Right.
We're actually trying to eliminate work for the purpose of, well, it's for that purpose to get rid of certain work and just be, mistake prone or unnecessarily tedious to a limited set of players. But really to allow those players to do real work. I'm mostly working directly with business owners. It would be like a single owner operator who usually has like a crew of people who solve a specific problem, people who drive a fleet of cars, people who are booked to go do a specific specialty service that they have a certification for. It could be, it could be a lot of different things like that. And so it'll come down to that there is no office staff. It's them and their specialists. And both of them are making a lot of money and they're very happy, but that owner is wearing too many hats.
Right.
And the main problem, it's not problem, it's just the problem of having too much crap to do comes from the fact that each problem they solve individually, so they just buy a new software. And really to solve the problem of automation is you kind of got to say kind of got to throw all the softwares away and not even think of it. You think of just like this net zero. What are all your tasks? What needs to be done? What's going to get done? And then it's kind of magical the way software works. I'm not even really a coder, but I have the language for these problems and I have the language to talk to the developers when I need to hire them. But also, even in the last 2 years, my favorite automation platform, I can type in what I want the automation to do and it would build a skeleton of the steps. I still need to do the fine tuning, but that's huge. That's truly greater than, say, in the year 1996, than a room full of a bunch of people making $100,000 a year putting together software. That was so fast to put together a custom piece of software for someone. And that's what we're doing. And so it's just a different kind of thinking because it's less production line about your tasks, and it's more like a cell with its mitochondria and all its different parts that are able to get the cell to do its thing. It's weird. And when you think about it like that, it's cool. You can do some amazing things. I've also done some weird, embarrassing things. I was setting up a bot for myself, and I had a bunch of contacts in it. And it sent out a bunch of sales letters to people I know, and I wasn't really ready for that. And they were pretty good. The voice was right, the sentiment was right, the setup was okay. It knew who they were and what they do and how we could work together. But then I had a few people who knew me well who goes, I didn't know you wanted to do business together, and that was very sentimental. It's like, yeah, about that. But that was personal. But so there's a lot you can do with automation, and so that's kind of that's been my piece. I want to do more between that and Space Midrash. I've come into being a player on a few media projects that are just more media production, and one is in the space realm. It's for an astronomy group that's worldwide. It's pretty awesome. We're putting out a show coming out pretty soon, and so I want to do more of that with the business. It's automation and media production. The media, I find it very fun, the media production side. I sat down and had a meeting with a bunch of people the other day and explained how they could essentially do what we're doing right now. And I had to write it out for them because I'm not part of their team. I'm not going to be part of their project, and I don't want to waste any more time answering any more questions. So I just wrote everything down, and it became very clear to me I should have not that this particular group was going to. It was a nonprofit project, but not that they had money right there, but that was a very valuable set of information. And so more people need to put out more shows. We live in the age of knowledge workers and the age of automation. So if the computers are going to be doing a lot of this work for us, those people will be open to talk. They'll have more time to be able to talk. And I mean, that's the job. It's just more learning and learning. So I want to be right at the intersection of that. That's the next role for me, I think, is a lot more media production. I've put across this, because then in addition to all that, I have this other business, which is Journal Dad, where I have a video course about journaling for dads. That's right, very niche. The name is exactly what it's supposed to be. And so as part of that marketing plan, we're putting out 2 podcasts, and one is more new father focused, like impending newborn, and the other one is really all dads. And will be half monologue, half interview. Not each episode, as in just the overall content. There'll be a lot of there's like a monologue that's more kind of a lesson and idea focused, and then an open discussion, which is just more of an open discussion. And so across all of that, I mean, I've produced over 100 episodes across all of these projects in the last 2 years. Yeah, I just realized that, and I was like, oh, wow, awesome. Because then I put out an episode of Space Midrash last week, and the editing, I just was able to get it done so fast. I mean, it was great. It was like, I know what I'm doing now. I've been doing this for a long time. Yeah.
That's incredible. A few things that you said just now, and I want to come back to your, emphasis on creation. I think we are in a, kind of an age of content creation. Anyways, we are what we create these days, and it has to be consumable and it has to be accessible. Otherwise, did you really do it? It would seem. But it's the automation thing is so interesting. I mean, I wish I had someone to automate my life, but a few things that came up for me. One is that I distinctly remember when I used to work at IBM, and we got trained as entry-level consultants. And the first thing, it was a test that they knew we would all fail. They would have us do a mock interview with a client. And what all of us would end up doing was to solution immediately. We would do solutioning based on the problem that they came to us with. And then they'd be like, you all did it wrong. Because you're not supposed to do that. If you're a good consultant, if you're a good partner to an organization, the thing that you're supposed to do is start by listening to their story. Because often what they come to you with is a problem, but it's more of a symptom to a bigger problem. It's not the problem that they actually need to solve. And what they want is a quick fix, like a software program, to make the symptom go away. But it doesn't change the underlying issue. It doesn't change the root cause. And so it was interesting to hear you say that, like, the thing where you really add value, and this makes sense. I think in our first episode, I called you like a multimedia storyteller with some technology or something like that. Mm-hmm. But what you are trying to help people do is often what we're doing here, which is helping people tell their story. How do they move through the world? How do they move through their day? How does their business move through their business from point A to point B to whatever their goal is? And in documenting that process, you come up with what are the associated inputs and actions that they need to help them get to the outcome at the end of the day in the most efficient way possible, using automation. But to do that first, you have to tell the story. What is the process? Which is what you're doing. You're doing what we do here, which I think is super interesting.
I have it actually listed on my website somewhere in the copy is an automation narrative is what we're building.
That's
Instead of blueprint, because blueprint is part of it. There is, there'll be a few kind of process diagrams, an arrow pointing to some, between two rectangles.
Process
But
tracing. You're a qualitative researcher. Welcome to
yeah,
the
but yay, nice, thank you. That's the best invitation ever. But yeah, it's like that's part of it. But the real deal is, the conversation and the story is really seeing what somebody is up to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fascinating. The other thing that came up for me, because I just taught this in my administrative theory class to my Masters of Public Administration students. We teach about like classical approaches to public administration, which is like Taylor's scientific management, Weber's theories of bureaucracy, which is all about like efficiency and process. But what it misses is something that the neoclassical theories and more modern theories get to, which is what you were describing, which is that organizations, they give the illusion often of being like contained unto themselves, like an internal environment impervious to the external environment, and that each part of the organization like maybe has one connection to another part of an organization, or maybe two, but they're contained into themselves. It's actually not true. What you're saying is they're like a cell, and what we get, and I work in this particular theory all the time, is that organizations are more like open systems, where they are permeable to their external and internal environments, which means that information is like constantly moving in a feedback loop and constantly exchanging across pieces. And so like the key to automation is that when there are, from what I'm hearing from you, is that when there are rote tasks, you have to, someone has to do the accounting and send it off to the accounting department and, register it for taxes and do your tax payment. Like that's like a closed process to an extent. But most of what you're doing in business is actually an open process that is requiring collaboration across multiple parts. And that is where the fun is. And that is where the change happens, where you can get emergent results and innovative results and where you can be really dynamic in it. And so how do you automate the things that are like just have to happen? You have to send the email to your supplier once a month. Hey, I need X many more of these. Cool. But like, how do you do that so that you can spend your time thinking about the fun things and innovating on the fun things? And that's where I hear you stepping in and helping people tell their stories differently.
That is exactly where I step in. And there's actually a certain anxiety that and resistance that comes from people with having these conversations, in that they want to have that time back. They want to spend less money on software. They want their software to work for them in an effective way. But when it comes down to, okay, we're going to do all of these things, and right now you really need to think hard about what are you doing that's not valuable at all, and you need to stop doing it altogether. And then what would you do that's really valuable to fulfill that? And those, I'm not actually asking people what are you going to do with that valuable time. I'm solving a different problem. They already know that, right? But that is the anxiety there. I had a conversation with somebody, and really the answer about not moving forward was like, what would I do in this situation? And the question to me was just like, what wouldn't you do? What wouldn't you do? You got all the time back. You wouldn't be doing all this, stupid stuff. Like anytime you need to do that, you would just ask the chatbot, and it will give you that specific set. It was a really cool thing. It would take their whole database, and it's just any question you have, it would produce a small report and email it to that manager in the organization. It's like, you could do whatever now. You don't have to write that report.
Right.
And
comes from when I think about my time in, both the public and the private sector, people wanted a lot of things from me. They micromanaged in the areas where they felt they could have the most control. And what they didn't want to talk about, usually, were the sticky things. The things that would be like in the unknown box. They would say, in our trainings, in our first days on the job and in our trainings and any of our professional learning, we want you to take risks. We want you to figure out what are unknown unknowns, and then when they're known, dive in and see what happens. They didn't actually mean that in practice, because there was a real fear of what would happen if the things that they understood they let go control of, and instead created an environment where we really were exploring things that would have been emergent, innovative, dynamic, unpredictable, nonlinear. That is what they said they wanted, but they didn't want it. Do you think that some of this is a mindset shift?
Oh, it's absolutely a mindset shift. I'll say I've worked with both millennial and non-millennial. Like, I'm only working almost directly with business owners, and so I've worked with millennial and non-millennial business owners. Are there's just at a certain point, people have more of the mindset. They're willing to kind of atomize and readjust everything, understanding that the solution is going to be a new environment. Whether or not there's a resistance to that, they get that part. There's people. It's not necessarily always over an older age, but it's just like they are of an older management structure, and that idea is very. I don't know.
There's unpredictability.
Yeah.
People that leads them to exclude the possibility that if they relinquish control over some things, you might actually uncover more than you knew was possible.
Absolutely. I mean, are we talking about my parents now, or what?
Go to our parents a little bit, right? Although I'm sure your parents probably say it too, that we keep on surprising them. So,
Yeah.
We are, I guess, the emergent, dynamic, innovative, nonlinear, unpredictable cogs in the machine, adaptive, et cetera, et cetera. I would be remiss if we didn't spend a little time talking about what I think you and I have been on concurrent journeys, which has happened to us so much in our lives. For those of you who don't go back and watch episode 1 from season 1, Jacob and I have known each other since 1997, which is hence probably our wonderful rapport. And often in our lives, we have found ourselves on concurrent journeys that we just didn't realize we were on. And you have been, much like I have been, on a creation kick lately. You've uncovered the artist within, if you will. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, oh man, the artist within, that's a whole thing. A lot of creation.
Portrait of an artist as a middle-aged man? Is that?
Yeah. My back is definitely the middle-aged man artist today. Yeah, creation, gosh, I'm a person who spends way too much time thinking as opposed to just letting thoughts come into being. And I try to move away from that and not be too much time thinking. And actually, in a way, all forms of a lot of the different outlets I have for art or creative expression can be like that. I can find myself kind of in states of thinkinglessness, even if it's very word-based. I don't know. So for me, it's been a couple different things. I mean, we were talking about creating. So the thing that kind of turned on was actually doing this show. It hit me of just, wow, it's an extension, a video is an extension of your voice and your body and your face, and we're putting it out there, and it's a reverberation of ideas. And I want to do that. That's not even that I want to do that. That's the modality that I want to be doing. So interestingly enough, at that time, there's a lot of different forms of creative outlets that I've had over the years. About 10 years ago, my favorite artistic outlet was I would take books of archival photographs, like government archive photos or something. I'd buy these at half-price books for nothing in the coffee table picture books section, and they'd be falling apart. And so then I'd take the pages that'd be falling apart, and I'd hold them up to the light, and take a photo of that, and then that contrasting image of both like that weird double exposure that would only exist because there's just this random page in a book that had these two photos randomly together. I'd edit that digitally and come up with something new. I don't know. I loved it. Some people hated it. Some people liked it.
Art is not for everyone.
Yeah, it was what it was. It was cool. There's a lot of cool stuff. It was, it's just like really funny is that it was very much how that looks now is a very much has a similar timbre to specifically Midjourney, which is an AI prompt-based image generating software that I like to use. I say that one, it really, like, as opposed to some of the other ones, which are equally as good, Midjourney is very much more for the artist. It's more about creating art as opposed to just creating an image. So 2 years ago, I guess in 2022, I recently looked when my first generated images were, but I got really into generating AI art. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of images. Were what I was doing. I had a couple of very resonant themes for me that were like things I was working through spiritually, like images that were like, I need to work through this image. And so AI gave me a place to play with that. And so then what got really cool was then last summer, I took a few prints. I took some of my art that I was making in a very specific subject. And, well, yeah. I even like used some of my AI art. I would use it as an attachment in an email to somebody I didn't know as like the handshake. And also I made this for you. And it got me a lot more replies. That's just like a little thing on the side. But
that's fascinating.
I had this whole series, which was like based off of dreams I had as a child where there'd be this war going on, but everyone would be sitting down at Shabbat dinner and it didn't matter. The war over there didn't, like, it just,
timely, isn't it?
Yeah, it was so weird. It would be the thing, it would be whether or not it was being acknowledged by the adults' conversation at the table. It just, there was a clear, you don't need to be scared. And so, but there was that juxtaposition always, it's just stark. I mean, it's a weird one. And so AI gave a really cool way to explore that. And so there was about a dozen pretty photorealistic images. However, the style still had a slight painting style to it that I got printed on canvas. I gave some away to some people as gifts, and then I saw an opening. There was an opening at a Holocaust museum for an art gallery that they were opening, and they were basically seeking. I can't remember what their call was, but I fit the call. Whatever the wide description was, that a picture that was this like Shabbat table, and there's a very much implied atom bomb cloud in the background. It could be just a major tempest, but the landscape is absolutely desolate in a way that it's been forced barren. But there's this table that's just, romantically elegant and not in no ways incongruent, which is, was this weird feeling I could get the AI to do. Like, yep, here's that table in the middle of this apocalyptic scene you asked for, like perfectly set. Oh wait, no, it should be like a little dirtied. That's, you change the words a bit, get it to work around. Mm-hmm. And so I found this one gallery. It was a Holocaust museum, and they took it. It was on display for a while. It is now in their archive. I don't think it's out on display anymore at the current moment. But it was there, which was pretty cool. That was important to me. I think what became uncomfortable about that art was making it in the summer was especially how photorealistic that set was. Like, that set has this weird relationship with me. I was very proud from producing it. It was very much the dreams that I was having. And it absolutely is the imagery you see out of both Israel and Gaza following October 7th. Like to a T, it was strange. Like the art when I made it, it looked like anywhere in the world. This is just like some image. If you look at it now, it looks absolutely like these very specific kind of Middle Eastern apartments and houses, and it's not. It's it it's weird. It's a different feeling, but at the same time, I feel it's important. Yeah.
Your art has left me with similar impressions and given me both a sense of unease and discomfort alongside a sense of comfort and resilience. At the same time, seeing what you've been producing, because you're right, it speaks very much to our current moment. I've been writing a lot of poetry. Returned to poetry after in the post October 7th landscape, which was my original love. As when I started writing, I started with poetry, and I, after October 7th, found a well within me that just could no longer write full sentences and short stories, but really was drawn to the sort of the compulsiveness of poetry, the imagery of poetry, and the punchiness of it, to try to just get out fast feelings and sit with multiple emotions and discomforts and comforts at once. And I found that in your art as well.
Well, and you've also been writing and putting a lot of stuff. I mean, outside of all the publishing you have to do as an academic, publish or perish, as I learned from Wet Hot American Summer, as a phrase. But on top of that, you've also, you also got published with a fiction piece in the last year.
Creative nonfiction piece. I got a short story.
Creative nonfiction.
Yeah, I've thought about going back to my fiction writing. I've thought about doing a lot of things, but I have tried to carve out a little space to return to my creative nonfiction writing, which is what I've published in the past. And so I had my fourth creative nonfiction short story, picked up by a small press, Glacial Hills Review. It's the name of the literary magazine, and you can find it on Amazon if you are interested. Because they are a small press, and so for $25 you get a beautiful glossy literary magazine with my story in it, and you support small press publishing and literature in the United States, which is beautiful. So shameless plug, reach out if you want. My friend, we're nearing the end of our time together.
Yeah, we're rounding out that hour. Wow. We went a lot of places today.
Went so many places. Folks, this is probably what it'll feel like, hopefully, in other shows going forward. As you'll recall, for those of you who watched first season, again, if you didn't, please go back. We find our footing and refine over time, and for us, this is a real-time live work in progress that we invite you into our creative process as we co-create together. This experience and also the experience with you. So reach out if you have ideas for folks you want to see on the show, or questions that you have, or ideas that you want to hear the dulcet tones of our voices and our thinking unpack. If you would like to be on the show, we'd love for you to suggest yourself. So feel free to self-nominate.
Yeah. You're especially if your journey is one you think wouldn't fit on any other show. Right. That's who we want. Your journey is awesome, whoever you are, and so we really want you to come share it. This is your invitation formally.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I want to have a Ron Burgundy sign off, stay classy, San Diego, something like that. Neither of us are in San Diego. We are in Texas, but stay hydrated.
Yeah, shine on.
Shine on.
So we'll be back. We'll be back next month with Sara, and then we will have some more guests line up after that. Thank you so much, everyone, wherever and whenever you're listening to this.
And welcome back to Liberal Arts MBA.